Hey everybody, welcome to the Dungeoncast. I'm Brian.
And I'm William.
This is the podcast where we talk about everything Dungeons and Dragons.
And today we are joined by...
Daniel Gonzales, one of the writers for Dragonstar, amongst a bunch of other things, and the newly minted founder for Diversity Saves, a brand new nonprofit, which we'll talk about a little later.
Indeed. And today we are talking about the newest 1D&D playtest, expert classes. Let's get into it. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome, adventurers, to the Dungeoncast.
Hey, Brad.
Hey, Will.
Hey, Daniel.
Dag.
What's up, y'all?
How's everyone doing today?
I've got 2 thumbs and they're up right now.
That's good. That's good.
Excited to be here.
This is my second day in a row recording the Dungeoncast.
Yeah.
Welcome home, William.
Indeed. And I want to say thank you to both you and special guest Jake for covering for my sick ass, because I've had the plague for the last 2.5 weeks. It's been terrible.
Is that what you call your skateboard? The plague?
The plague?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
All the kick flips and sweet
all the
flips
sweet
and
kick
tricks.
flips. Yeah, absolutely. I've just been plaguing it up.
I'm glad you finally took your sunglasses off.
For sure. So,
hey, do you guys know Dag? He's from the Discord.
He is. He's our administrator, in fact.
Yeah. I've been the admin for the Discord since not long after the beginning. Brought on, the whole admin team with me with all the mods and everything. And also recently started writing with Will here on the Starseeker's Guide to Dragonstar. So we've been
hard working on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know I hit it hard last episode, but thank you guys so much for helping fund that. It's incredible.
Amazing. Yeah.
Thank you guys so much.
Absolutely. Thank you guys.
The creative team that we have behind this project, I have a lot of faith in. That I'll leave it at that. It's gonna be good.
Yeah, this is gonna be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys. So let's get into it. As we all know, Wizards of the Coast has been rolling out Unearthed Arcanas on their new playtest for what seems to be essentially going to be like the next quote unquote edition, or the 5.5 of 5e D&D.
There can only be one.
There can only be one. And they're calling it 1D&D.
1D&D.
And they most recently, about a month ago, we had to put it off because we were doing spooky stuff for October. But they most recently released...
Hell yeah!
They most recently released a PDF with a few things released, but the main piece of this playtest is new iterations of the Bard, the Rogue, and the Ranger. And they've grouped these classes into a subcategory they're calling expert. They're calling these expert classes. And they have these new class groups for all the different classes. And for the experts here, they are describing the Bard, Ranger, and Rogue as polymaths who have the expertise feature and elements of other classes. Now, the interesting thing here is that the Ranger originally does not have the expertise feature, but they're kind of like letting you know here that it's coming. And in fact, they do add the expertise feature to the Ranger.
Yeah, were they like beating around the bush about giving it expertise in regular 5e because of all the extra additional like survival features it gets?
Well, I think the Ranger has traditionally been one of the 3 what some people might call the skill monkey classes.
Yeah.
Which is the Bard, the Ranger, and the Rogue.
Right.
The Bard, Ranger, and Rogue get more skill proficiencies than any of the other classes. And I believe the Bard and the Rogue did get expertise, and the Ranger was kind of left out. And I think they realized that maybe that was a mistake, and they're looking to rectify that here.
Okay, yeah, that's what it feels like.
I spent a lot more time focusing on exploration with the Ranger and 5e, I think, and kind of went a little too hard in the paint there, and course correcting now.
Yeah, I agree.
Like they subbed out giving the class skill expertise and gave it those features instead. Is what it feels like.
Another thing they mention is that the Artificer isn't really listed here, but if it were to be, it would also be an expertise, an expert class. And as for the other categories, they're as follows: there are mages, priests, and warriors. The mages being the sorcerer, warlock, and wizard, and the class group is described as adepts of arcane magic, focusing on utility and destruction. Priests are cleric, druid, and paladin, And the group is described as stewards of divine or primal magic, focusing on healing, utility, and defense. And finally, warriors are barbarian, fighter, and monk. And this group is described as masters of combat who can deal and endure many wounds. So I would be surprised if the next Unearthed Arcana they roll out won't be one of these class groups.
I do gotta say, I got a little bit of a bone to pick with the fact that they lump paladin in with priests. Because they've spent so long talking about how paladins aren't religious based,
Yes.
they're not god based, but then they, I don't know.
Yeah,
I guess they had to put them somewhere, right?
They had to put them somewhere.
Yeah, and they get shoehorned into this category. So no matter what they say, it bears something holy about it, right?
Yeah. And the paladin does kind of fill the space between the two groups, if you will.
Do you think it could likely be placed into warrior without too many gripes? Or no?
I think they're trying to stick to 3 each, right?
Yes, they're trying to stick to 3 each. And I think the paladin just has too much baggage with smites, with spells, and just with magic in general to be sidled in with the warriors who essentially are all magic lists, except for the monk who kind of rides a weird line.
That's what I was just about to say. I think an argument could be made to swap the paladin with the monk here in those categories.
You could.
It's a stretch. I think they got it right where they put them, but
I hear you. I see what you're saying. To me, it smells very strongly of 4th edition, which did something similar. 4E had 5 what they called power sources. And if whatever class you had, it belonged to a particular power source. There was martial, arcane, divine, primal, and then the 5th one was psychic or psionic, excuse me. And so this smells kind of like that. And they go on to say this: a class group has no rules in itself, but prerequisites and other rules can refer to these groups. For example, only members of the mage group might be able to attune to a particular magic item, or a feat might be available only to members of the warrior group. When creating a party of adventurers, one way to form a well-rounded group is to include at least one member of each class group. I think the idea here is they want to play with this concept of funneling things into categories. So that, like, how do I say this? So they want to be able to do things later with magic items, with feats probably are going to be a big thing, where if you want this feat, you have to take a certain route. And they're trying to prevent cross-pollination or over cross-pollination between concepts. I don't know. That's just kind of my feeling. So the
skill tree is more like a hard wall in. Like
I do feel like they're trying to limit. They're trying to limit options.
Sure.
That's how it feels to me. I don't know if it's a bad or a good thing. It's just what it feels like to me.
Fun fact about Will, and I've known him long enough, I can say something like this.
Sure, go ahead.
When he is shopping in any store, if something smells like 4th edition, he buys it.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. I do like a lot of things about 4E. That being said, I love 5E. I know I'm always talking about 4E on the show.
I went to a con together, and you somehow managed to get us to play 4E. And in like 2 days, we were together.
Well, he straight up said the books.
All of the books are in my car.
Yeah, he's like, nothing in this convention smells like 4th edition. It's okay. I brought my own.
So I'll see what happened was I was clearing out space in my apartment. I had a bunch of old 4E stuff taking up space. I was like, let me bring it back to the studio. And I had 2 different days I was supposed to come here that didn't happen. And then the convention happened. And that stuff was in my car. And I just brought it up. And all of y'all said yes. So I said, okay, let's play.
You guys will probably be able to see it on YouTube next episode. Or I guess we're recording these backwards, huh?
We are.
So the episode before this one, you guys probably saw it. But I put some 4th edition books up in the back. The ones you brought. It looks sick.
Those are the ones.
Yeah.
All right. So does anyone have any questions or things they want to add about the whole class group thing before we kind of get into these new revisions for the classes?
One thing I will add, the thing that I do like about the class groups is, and you touched on a little bit, is you talked about party balance. I know a lot of, especially people getting into D&D, have a lot of trouble kind of like, oh, well, how do I make sure the class is balanced? How do I make sure that we have everyone we need? And similar to old school D&D, where you just had the mage, the fighter, the priest, and
the rogue.
And the rogue. There we go. I think this kind of harkens back to that a little bit. It helps newer players and newer DMs kind of, find their role.
I think you're absolutely right. And that is one thing I've noticed when reading this is like, I have to keep stopping myself and be like, but wait, think about it as if I was new to D&D. Would this be easier? And the answer, I think, usually has been yes.
Wizards has been big on accessibility, and I think this is just walking further down that line.
Yeah, I mean, it's paid dividends for them for this edition, so I can't really fault them for that.
Did we address that this one D&D like Unearthed Arcana, it's all super pliable right now? It can change.
Yes, all super pliable.
I don't know if we said that at the top. We probably did, but I just wanted to reiterate that in case like there are newer listeners that don't understand what exactly is going on here. But yeah, it is a test. It's not written in stone. These aren't going to be the new rules.
No,
they
if
might
you're
be
listening
though.
to this a year from now, things are going to be way different.
Yeah, this episode won't be relevant. That's the truth. I will go as far as to say this. I don't know this for a fact. This is just how it feels to me sometimes. I would go as far to say is sometimes I think they put things in here that are on purpose controversial, that they have no plans on actually like making into the official rules.
100% agree with that.
Yeah, just to get buzz going, because it gets people talking about it, and that's what they want.
Gets the people going.
Exactly. But let's get into it. Let's start with the bard, because they started with the bard. And I've made a little bit of a bullet list for each of the classes and the subclass that they present. Rather than go through every single thing, just kind of like some of the highlights, like what are some of the differences or what's something new. And the first thing that is different about this bard is that bardic inspiration has been changed. Let me pull it up here so we can go over the difference. So in the new Unearthed Arcana, you get bardic inspiration at level 1. You could supernaturally inspire others through words, music, or dance. This inspiration is represented by your bardic inspiration, which is a d6. You can use your bardic inspiration die in the following ways. When another creature within 60 feet of you that you can see or hear fails a d20 test, you can use your reaction to give the creature a bardic inspiration die. The creature rolls that die and adds the number rolled to the d20, potentially turning the failure into a success. Another way you can use it is immediately after a creature within 60 feet of you that you can see here takes damage. You can use your reaction to roll the bardic inspiration die and restore a number of hit points equal to the number that you rolled. The main difference here is the inspiration die being like an active action that you can do mid-battle. That is a reaction to something that's happened. Well, I think before you had to assign bardic inspiration to somebody and then they could spend it when they chose. Am I correct on that, Dad?
Yes. Yeah. See, I really, really like this. I've played a few bards, not as much as Marcos, who's also one of our mods on our channel, has.
Yeah.
Damn, go Marcos. 2 episodes in a row coming up.
So,
well, I guess not. Sorry.
Previously, no, you're good. Previously, it was a bonus action, right? It was a bonus action on your turn. You give an inspiration to somebody, and then you spend the next 20 minutes harassing them every time it's their turn. Don't worry, you have inspiration, by the way. Don't forget about your inspiration.
Right.
I really like that this puts it back in the hands of the bard to kind of just snap decide like, I sing a little ditty, and now you're not going to die. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. It puts the ability in direct control of like when it's used and how it's used into the bard, who is the one who uses it. Like it makes way more sense. It's a better structured mechanic, I think. Moving on, the next thing here, and this actually proves true for not just the bard but for the ranger, which we'll get into next. Spells now are not learned; they are just known and. Or the old way was that spells were learned and known. The new way is now spells are just prepared off your list. Like a cleric, you have access to your whole list and you can prepare them based off the number that you can prepare. This seems like the way they're moving for all the classes. I'm not sure if that's a good or bad thing. It's just different. So
I feel like I'd prefer that.
Yeah, I think I prefer it too. Like, it's one nice thing that whenever I roll a cleric is like, I don't have to choose. I mean, I do get to choose, but like, I get the whole list to choose from and not have to worry about like the permanence of my choice.
I have no idea. Go ahead.
Sorry. Starting at low level, I think this is really good. If you're running a one shot and you're creating like a level 15 druid who also uses the same mechanic, it can be a little overwhelming if you don't know the spells. But it's definitely one of those things where I think its benefit outweighs the potential risk, except for the wizard. If they do this for the wizard, I'll riot.
I was about to say the way this affects not just the wizard, but the sorcerer and wizard in relation to each other. That's where things get hairy. Like the defining thing between them has always been number of spells known versus like the ability to do more with the limited spells that you do know. And so if they do make this change for both of them, they're going to have to do a lot of work on all the other mechanics to make both these classes feel both different from each other and like their classic selves. Next up on the Bard is an interesting change. The old Bard had the Song of Rest feature, and this new Bard has a feature called Songs of Restoration. And they're quite different. Let's start with the original Bard, the PHB Bard. And Song of, because it's a very straightforward feature. So beginning at second level, you can use soothing music or oration to help revitalize your wounded allies during a short rest. If you or any friendly creature you can hear who can hear your performance regains hit points at the end of a short rest by spending 1 or more hit die, each of those creatures regains an extra 1d6 hit points. And then this increases at certain levels. So basically it was something you did during a short rest while people were spending hit die. It's a feature that relies on other characters doing something before you can act. Now let's look at the new way they want to do it. Let me pull up this tab here. So Songs of Restoration. You've learned how to use music, poetry, and dance to heal wounds and maladies. When you reach certain levels in this class, you can add specific spells to your Songs of Restoration repertoire. As shown on the Songs of Restoration repertoire table, you always have that spell prepared, and it does not count against the number of spells you can prepare. So 2nd level, Healing Word. 4th level, Lesser Restoration. 6th level, Mass Healing Word. 8th level, Freedom Movement. And 10th level, Greater Restoration. So rather than it be like this kind of like non-spell type feature that you can do in a very specific moment, in a very specific situation, it's like, here's free healing spells instead. I don't know if it's better or worse. It's different though. Thoughts?
I don't know. Like, I don't hate it. It's just expanded spell list, right?
Right. Yes, it's expanded spell list.
It's cool.
Yeah.
But also, like, I feel like when Tasha's came out and they did have an expanded spell list for pretty much every subclass, I liked that it was subclass based. So it's weird to have
not
this,
being subclass based
here, because I don't think I know we're gonna get into it, but I'm pretty sure the Bard subclass they've included doesn't have an expanded spell list.
Yeah, no, it does not. I do not believe it does.
I think it's kind of weird to move it to the core class.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about this one.
Yeah, it's not exciting. I'll say that.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. The next difference I saw, the big one, was they seem to have taken out the counter charm ability the original Bard had. So what they got rid of was, at level 6, you had the ability to use musical notes or words of power to disrupt mind-influencing effects. As an action, you can start a performance that lasts until the end of your next turn. During that time, you and your friendly creatures within 30 feet of you have advantage on saving throws against being frightened or charmed. A creature must be able to hear you to gain the benefit. The performance ends early if you're incapacitated or silenced, or if you voluntarily end it. This feature just isn't, there's no version of it in the new version of the Bard.
Very upsetting. I think this is one of the coolest Bard features. They took it away.
I'm gonna fight you on this one, Brian. Counter charm is trash.
What?
Counter charm is super trash.
It's like a good soup.
As an action,
it's delicious.
It takes an action to do.
It's super situational.
It has a 30-foot range. Yeah, it's super situational. It's got like a bunch of qualifiers to it. My question is, what did they replace it with?
Subclass ability.
Yeah, okay. Well, we're not at the subclass yet, because this was just a Bard thing. It wasn't subclass tied. Let me see here. You get Font of Bardic Inspiration, but that's not anything different. I'm pretty sure you get that as a normal Bard. Yeah. So yeah, that's just gone. But Dag's saying not gonna miss it. Brian, you're saying like, hey, I love that. Why'd you get rid of it?
Well, I never played a Bard. I've never played a Bard before.
That's fair. You haven't.
I'm gearing up to play one, right? But like,
you are.
The idea of it is really cool, especially if you're going into like Underdark territory, Mind Flayers and stuff, or like, I don't know.
It has its uses for sure. It does. Frightening and charming.
I see what you're saying. In practical gameplay, it might not come up ever.
Yeah.
But
when it really depends on like the kind of game you're playing, right? Like a dungeon crawl, it if you know ahead of time, that could definitely,
I would say if you were looking to improve that feature, and I might be wrong here, maybe I'm being too extreme, but it might make more sense, since you're sacrificing your entire action which, as a bard and a caster, that's a pretty big action you're sacrificing. Maybe it just makes everyone in the aura, the 30 feet aura around you, immune to those effects, which could give a creature that relies on that a very good reason to focus on you while you're doing that. And I feel like there's tactical value there, but just giving advantage maybe isn't strong enough to make it worth doing.
Yeah, advantage is good. I just love the idea, like, this person singing is grounding everybody.
Yeah, I like the idea too. I'm with you there. And then the last thing that the Bard just changed, and this is true for all three of the classes, is they've gotten rid of the capstone features for these classes at level 20, and they've all given them basically access to a type of feat that they've introduced in this Unearthed Arcana called Epic Boon Feats. These are similar to the epic boons that you could give to characters after you passed level 20, meaning like leveling is stopped, but we want to keep adventuring. What is something that at me as a DM that I could give to my players to be like the equivalent of character growth? It was handing out epic boons.
Epic boon.
Yeah. We'll go over epic boons a little bit later. Any questions, comments, concerns, anything I might have missed before we jump into the College of Lore, which is the one subclass they've offered in this Unearthed Arcana?
So I read through this ahead of time because I was curious. The one thing that you didn't touch on, which I thought was interesting, is 11th level magical secrets. They changed it a little bit.
Oh, did they?
Instead of just picking any class for who you're going to take your spells from, you take it from one of the three spell lists. So either arcane, divine, or primal. You get to pick spells from. So they're breaking the spells down into these three subcategories now, and you pick one of those three, which I thought was pretty cool.
That is cool, and it probably greatly expands like how many options you have. I would imagine to get the most bang for your buck in original 5e, you'd either pick the wizard or the druid.
Yeah.
So or the cleric. Okay, well, yeah, I did miss that, so I'm glad you brought it up.
Those three spell list categories were from the last one D&D update, right?
Yes, it was. And again, it smells like 4E, so I like it.
Tasty.
Let's pull up both the lore bard from the original Player's Handbook and the new one, and let's go over some of the differences. So I wrote here. By the way, I wrote these notes like 3 weeks ago before I started dying of sickness, so they're kind of new to me too. So I don't remember why I wrote this, but we're gonna figure it out. Skill proficiency feature tweak. So it says here in the Unearthed Arcana, you gain 3 skill proficiencies: Arcana, History, and Nature. If you already have one of these proficiencies, choose a skill proficiency you lack. So I think the difference here is that it just tells you what you get. You don't get to choose, because I'm pretty sure you got to choose. Yes, in their OG Player's Handbook, when you join the College of Lore at 3rd level, you gain proficiency with 3 skills of your choice. So in this one, they've taken that choice away from you. They're saying these are the 3 you get. And again,
this is your lore.
Yeah, this is the sense I've been getting from these Unearthed Arcanas. It's they actually are kind of closing the walls in on you and giving you less choice.
Is this the move that is blatantly what's not going to be kept, is like boxing people in, sort of like the older ways used to?
I don't know, because this is exactly what they did with 4th edition when 4E went through the same thing with what was called 4E Essentials. And they came out with new versions of classes that were compatible with the old, but the new versions had much, much narrower pathways and very, very much fewer choices.
Did 4E Essentials have like a really slick marketing campaign? Like,
it did.
4E Essentials. And they were like,
I don't know if it was like that, but they were plastering it everywhere.
Oh, sick. Okay.
Dag, did you play D&D in those days?
Yeah, I started playing D&D in 2nd edition.
Okay, so you're familiar with that change from 4E to Essentials, right?
Yeah. It was essentially just kind of like streamlining everything. It felt almost like just pre-gens when it came to character creation.
It did. And I don't think they're going to go that far with this, but again, it is in the same vein of what's going on here. What are your guys' thoughts on them just giving you those instead of letting you choose?
I don't know. It's counterintuitive to some of the books they've put out in the back half of 5e. You know,
like
like Tasha's gives you all this freedom,
right?
You know, it just it feels backwards, a step backwards.
Yeah, between Xanathar's and Tasha's, like we've expanded our choice from the core 12 with I think we have like 30 subclasses to 50 now. and it's been great. And I think I know we're kind of starting over, even though they don't want to call it starting over. They don't want to call it a new edition, but it definitely feels like, I think you said it perfectly well, William. It's the walls are closing in, and I don't like it.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Especially from my perusing of different community boards and stuff, it seems like the fandom, including the new 5e fandom, that's only known 5e, they've been clamoring for one major thing, and that's a little bit more nuance, a little bit more choice, a little bit more complexity. They want a little bit more, and this is not that. So I'm not sure how the fandom is going to react to it.
Yeah, I think a lot of listeners of this show are 5e people.
Mm-hmm. I think so too.
We definitely see you, older edition folks.
Oh yeah,
because you make yourself seen.
Yep.
We got 2 people on the Discord who fucking love 4th edition.
They do. You think I like it? Man, they're into it.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on the college lore. The next thing that I noticed was that cutting words seems the same, but it gets an improved version at higher levels. Let's go over cutting words.
Slicing sentences.
You learn how to use your wit to supernaturally distract, confuse, and otherwise sap the confidence and competence of others. When a creature that you can see within 60 feet of yourself succeeds on an ability check or an attack roll, you can use a reaction to expend one of your bardic inspiration die, rolling a bardic inspiration die and subtracting the number rolled from the creature's roll, potentially turning it into a failure. And then at level 10, you get an improved version of this. Whenever you use your cutting words feature on a creature, you could deal psychic damage to the creature equal to the number rolled on the bardic inspiration die plus your charisma modifier. And that's really the only difference. Is like, hey, it's a little bit better because you do it so good you hurt their brain. Which is cool. That's always fun. I like psychic damage, and I think one of the very charming things about the bard is being able to do damage to you with words, because it's hilarious.
Yeah, I like. There's been some cool bard stuff I've seen lately that, like, kind of inserts images to cause pain. Like mental trauma.
Oh wow, yeah, psychic, I like that. I like that.
Less physical, more mental side of psychic damage, I guess.
Right. I'm into it. That's cool.
Yeah, like a step up from Vicious Mockery. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I wrote here, cutting inspiration is both new and useful. So I think this is a totally new feature. I don't think it existed before. I'm looking now. No, it didn't. New feature at level 6 called Cunning Inspiration. Through your studies and your cunning, you've learned to inspire others exceptionally well. When any creature rolls your bardic inspiration die, that creature can roll the die twice and use the higher of the 2 rolls. Well, that's very nice. I think it's a nice little feature.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, what's the word? Encourages you to use that bardic inspiration, which is like your, I wouldn't go as far as saying it's like your defining feature, but it's definitely one of your standout features as a bard. And this just makes it better and makes you want to use it more. So,
yeah, it'll inspire a lot of creativity and role play.
Yeah.
See how you implement it.
I think thematically, bardic inspiration has always been like a big one, right?
Yeah.
So, and anything to encourage more use for it, I think is definitely a good thing.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And then finally, Peerless Skill is still the capstone from the original, but it's been slightly improved. So I'll read the original one first, and then we'll go to the UA one. Peerless Skill, starting at 14th level, you can make an ability check. You can expend 1 use of your Bardic Inspiration, roll a Bardic Inspiration die, and add the number rolled to your ability check. You can choose to do so after you roll the die for the ability check, but before the DM tells you whether you've succeeded or failed. The new version, when you make an ability check and fail, you can expend 1 of your Bardic Inspiration, roll the Bardic Inspiration die, and add the number rolled to the ability check, potentially turning it into a success. If the check still fails, the Bardic Inspiration isn't expended. So essentially, rather than the DM kind of being in control of whether it succeeds or fails, you don't have to use it unless you fail, and then you get to use it. And then if it still fails, you don't expend the Bardic Inspiration. I think that's a nice touch.
That's cool. Yeah. That's like how new players wish spells worked.
Right. Very much
I mean,
so.
It gets rid of that song and dance of like, I rolled the die, I got a 12. Plus my mod, is that going to be enough? Like, you get that instead of just knowing it failed and then being able to use this. I think it also kind of helps with the flow of just the combat and actions.
Yeah, I agree. I think it definitely improves the flow of combat, which, it's the thing that takes the longest in this game. You could do a lot of like plot moving and character development and stuff in an hour, but you can only get so much combat done in that same amount of time.
I kind of want to see a feature from the bard that's like, if somebody fails at something, you can like, and that will cause some sort of inspiration, you know?
Well, I think you can. I think that's kind of the way the new inspiration works, is when they fail, you can use your reaction to be like, hey, here's some inspiration. And then they can roll the die and succeed.
No, I mean, like, they eat that failure. And then because they failed, they gain, like, the experience from it. And they become inspired from their failures. Like, the bard can, like, reassure you and be like, hey, this is a learning experience.
Right.
Jump higher next time, you fucking idiot.
For sure.
Absolutely. Really cool for, like, a bard of valor or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be dope. I'd be super into that.
I like that idea too. I think their idea here is they want to make the bard feel good in the moment about what they're doing. But I do like your idea.
They want to make the bard feel good in the moment.
About themselves in the moment.
Okay.
Yeah. You missed that part.
It's all about,
or maybe I didn't say that part. Anything you guys want to add about the bard before we move on to the ranger?
I thought we were about to talk about all the horny with the thing you said.
Oh.
Where's all the horny?
The horny is implied.
Oh, okay. You're right.
Yeah, there's a real lack of seduction in there, but I think that's okay.
Well, it is the lore bard. It's not the sexy bard. It's the lore bard.
Fucking nerd.
It's the nerdiest
This
bard.
Is the bard that like reads books for fun. All right.
Indeed.
I read books for fun.
I do too.
And you're both nerds. You're not.
Oh, he got us. Damn it. On our own podcast.
Shout out to Demon Gorgon. Shout out to Demon Gorgon. Oh yeah. Shout out to Demon Gorgon. Shout out to Demon Gorgon. Oh yeah.
We've returned.
Indeed we have.
We are back.
Indeed we are.
We're putting the new Unearthed Arcana on our back, and we're gonna march it. We're gonna march through this unknown wilderness together as a team.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, Daniel. We appreciate you being here on the show. It's been long overdue. We've We've had many scheduling and technical errors.
Indeed, we
have.
For
like the past 6 months. Yeah.
We've
been pretty solid.
We've legitimately been trying to get you on the show for months. Actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you got going on?
Yeah. Oh boy. So like I said earlier, I have been doing some writing and designing for Starseeker's Guide to Drakenstar, which is a really great project. I was super honored to be a part of it. Very excited that we got funded. Now we can get to work on the book.
Let me jump in right there. Sorry to cut you off. On that note, if you guys don't know what we're talking about, please check out our actual play podcast, Super Quest Saga. It's a full campaign. It is now complete. And this Starseeker's Guide to Drakenstar is the play book, if you will, I guess, of that setting and campaign.
The source setting book, if you will. And it's a science fantasy space opera style setting. And if you are into that and seeing how it melds and mixes with classic D&D, it's definitely the book for you.
I will say the epilogue was a little bit of tearjerker.
Oh, thank you.
After all this time.
And Brian killed it, dude. The sound design killed.
I cried editing it twice.
That's incredible.
I was empowered by Josh Freeland, as I always am. And I cried during Jake's and Will's scene.
Oh, yeah.
That was a good
one. Percy will always tug at my heartstrings.
Yeah.
It was so like, it wasn't too sweet, It was like it wasn't too rich. It was like just the right amount of
there's always just
dessert.
Percy bitterness with Percy.
Yes.
A little bit, yeah.
And it carried all the way through the epilogue. It wasn't like quite the thing, but it was close enough, Like, oh man, I don't even think that was spoilers. So good though. Yeah. Very fun stuff.
We're walking that line. We're getting real close to spoilers. But it was incredible.
If you're a fan of Super Quest Saga, look forward to that epilogue, and when you catch it, it's the perfect lead in to the Starseeker side. Guide to Drakenstar. So enough about that.
Yeah.
Back to you, Dak.
Aside from that, I do freelance design and writing in the ttrpg space. Have been doing so for about 7 years now. Working with all different kinds of companies, from Jetpack 7 to most recently working with Matt Kavanaugh on the Gardener's Guide to Gaming, which is currently on Kickstarter. But my big passion right now, and the one that is driving me the most, is a nonprofit organization that I actually founded and I'm the chairman of, and it's called Diversity Saves. We're a collection of BIPOC and LGBTQIA plus members of the TTRPG community who've committed to the promotion and uplifting of marginalized communities in the tabletop space and within the industry through grants and fundraising opportunities. So essentially, a group of us, brown and gay people got together and we're like, look, we love this space. We love, everything that's happening here. We love all of these independent creators, but we want to get our voices out. We want to get our stories out. How do we do that in the best way possible? And what we found was one of the biggest barriers is always financial. So if we can help to provide grants to people to just help them fund their next project, that's something we want to do. So we're in the early stages of fundraising right now. We're going to be opening up for grant applications early next year. And we have our first big fundraising event in the first week of December 1st through 10th. It's going to be called 12 Games of Christmas. And it is going to be a week and a half of just TTRPG games with DMs and players from all across the TTRPG community coming together to just help raise funds for Diversity Saves. And we're going to be focusing on BIPOC and LGBTQ players and DMs whenever we can, but obviously any allyship and anyone is welcome to sign up and join. We'll be posting more about it on Twitter, Instagram, and on our website. We're at diversitysaves.org, or on Twitter and Instagram, just at diversitysaves. And yeah, we're just hoping to go out there and, help just amplify the voices of people in the marginalized communities in the TTRPG space.
Well, that sounds wonderful.
That sounds super cool, dude.
Really happy that you're doing that, and I'm proud to be associated with it.
Indeed, and also let us know how we can help as well.
You have our support.
We're always looking for sponsors.
We know how to do that.
We'll talk more about that later.
Yeah, we'll definitely, we talk all the time. So
yeah, indeed.
Yeah, definitely get a partnership for the future. Shall we get back into the Unearthed Arcana of expert classes in the 1D&D space?
Indeed.
Get back into it.
Let's do it.
Let's talk about. I'm going to take over for Will a little bit.
Yeah,
here.
if you can't tell, if you're listening to this, I'm still slightly dying of the plague.
He's dying.
I'm powering through this cough the best I can. This is the most I've talked in 2.5 weeks. Let's go.
Off mic. Right?
Microscopic things are trying to kill him.
It's true.
Okay. I heard you built a big ramp.
No, I did not.
And that's why you haven't been on the show.
The biggest ramp you've ever seen in your life.
Jeez.
Too busy working on that vert game.
He did a backflip off of like a snow ramp, and he lost one of his skis, and he just landed on one foot.
And that's why I have a cough.
And that's why he's coughing. He got a bunch of snow in his lungs. All right, let's talk about the Ranger.
Mm-hmm.
First bullet point, you get expertise at level 1.
So as I was saying earlier, or as we were talking about earlier, the Ranger doesn't actually get expertise in the original player's handbook, and they probably looked at it and were like, we should change that. So they did. Level 1, you get it. If you don't know what expertise is, you gain expertise into two of your skill proficiencies of your choice, stealth and survival arcanic choices for the Ranger if you have proficiency in them. Now, what's interesting here is they don't actually explain it. That's rather strange. Correct me if I'm wrong. You get to double your proficiency bonus to that skill, right? That's how expertise works?
That's correct.
Yeah. So if you have a +2 proficiency mod, it becomes the +4.
I find it incredibly odd that they don't add it here. Like, what is expertise? It just says you get expertise. It doesn't actually tell you what that is.
I wonder, did they detail it in one of the other subclasses, like before you read it, so it would have been like a redundancy?
I think they detailed it probably in the glossary at the end, which is
whack.
Not into that.
I went back and looked at the bard because I was like, oh, maybe they detailed it there and they were just being lazy. Nah.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, I bet you it's in the glossary. I would bet money right now it's in the glossary.
They do that little asterisk thing and then they kind of put it at the footnote.
Yeah. I do think it's cool the Ranger gets expertise, though. I think that it fits. I think it's a good choice, and it's good to get at level 1. I'll say that.
Yeah, and the bard actually gets sexpertise. Get it? It's another horny bard joke. Favored foe is now a favored enemy and is transformed into a better version of the Hunter's Mark spell.
Yes. So in 5e, their approach to... So the Ranger has always had this idea of like a favored enemy type. Like, you are a hunter of the wild, but because of like where you do your ranging, you have the most experience with this particular type of beastie, right?
Yeah.
I think some people, and I'm not sure how I feel about it because I haven't really given it much thought, but I do think that there's some people who have found it a little bit problematic when it comes to the whole humanoid bit of it all. Of like, oh, I'm really good at particularly hunting humans and elves. And I don't know if it's icky or not, but I've read that some people have gotten that sense. So I think they're moving away from that, and they've turned it into a more they've turned it into a 4E thing where it's basically like Hunter's Quarry from 4E, where it's like you can pick a foe, they're your quarry now, and you do extra damage. But let's read the actual feature, then the way it works. You are adept at focusing your ire on a single foe. You always have the Hunter's Mark spell prepared, and it does not count against the number of spells you can prepare. Moreover, you don't have to concentrate on the spell once you cast it, which is nice. It lasts for its full duration, which is nice, until you end it, or as a bonus action, or until you are incapacitated. So, thoughts?
Broken. Right out the bat. I'll say this is hella broken. So Hunter's Mark is a good spell. I like this spell. Yes. I like this ability. It's interesting because they had favorite enemy for the ranger at first, and then with Tasha's they changed it to favorite foe, and now they're back to favorite enemy, which is cool. But this doesn't say anything about stacking. It doesn't say that because it's not concentration, you could be like, hey, you 5 over there, you're all my favorite foes now, or favorite enemies.
Well, it does say on a single foe.
Yeah, but that's like the flavor text, right?
It's not in the... It is, you're right, it is in the flavor text.
Like, they need to have you can use this X amount of times per short rest, or just something in there to...
It is lacking in mechanical language, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Tied to proficiency, that's my go-to for everything. I love that shit.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. And that is something we probably actually will see with it. Mm-hmm. As for overpowered, I don't know. Maybe you're right. I will say that the Ranger from 4th edition had a feature that was just like this called Hunter's Quarry. And the Ranger from 4th edition was the most powerful DPS in the game. Mm-hmm. I don't think this feature is going to turn the Ranger into that, but the Ranger, I think, does need extra DPS. If we're looking at this from like a gaming standpoint, the Ranger has always felt a little weaker. And I'm not the only person who feels like that. So I think this is a cool start to an approach, at least.
Yeah, no, I think it's a big improvement, especially like almost everybody I know who wanted to play a Ranger just ended up with like a dex-based fighter because they were just so much better at everything the Ranger could do. So I think that this kind of helps in that regard. I just think there needs to be a little bit of tweaking around the language of like being able to spam this on like just a fat group of enemies that you're fighting.
Yeah, I think some better language.
That's fair.
Yeah, and I think the criticism of better language can be peppered throughout this entire Unearthed Arcana here and there.
It's playtest material.
It's playtest material.
Yeah, I like the idea, like, if you could implement that single enemy feature, and then I kind of like how some of the Rangers magic has like, like AoE stuff tied into it.
Yeah.
And then like using magic can make you hit multiple enemies, but most of the time you're like zooming in on one.
Right. All right, next up.
You get spellcasting at level 1, and it includes cantrips, which Rangers did not get before.
So yeah, one of the weird things about the Ranger and the Paladin, I guess because they're like the two main half casters from the Player's Handbook, is they didn't get spellcasting until level 2, and you didn't get cantrips. I don't know about the Paladin, but I do feel like the Ranger having cantrips makes sense. I'm not sure why I feel that way. I just feel that way. And I like that you get spells from level 1 because the Ranger needs as much as it can get, and it sucks when you're at level 1 waiting for some of your features to kick in at level 2 for you to feel like you're hitting your stride.
I'm interested to know which cantrips. Since I've never really thought about Rangers, like what I would pick for them, like Druidcraft comes to mind.
Druidcraft comes to mind. Maybe Produce Flame. I'm not sure.
One of the things they're doing in this playtest, I don't know if it's just for the playtest or this is how they plan on doing it, but they list what spells you get prepared at those levels. Like it says you have the following spells prepared, and then it just straight out lists them.
It does. Right. Yeah. It does. But then right after it says, or you can choose your own.
Oh, yeah, you're right. It says, or fuck everything we just said.
But you're right. They do present it as if you don't have a choice. Yeah. And then if you just keep reading a little more, it says, or in like little detailed like mini script, or you can choose your own.
Yeah,
it's like they don't want you to, but they gotta say you can.
I mean, the ones they listed are cool though. It's Guidance and Thorn Whip, which Thorn Whip makes a lot of sense for a ranger because they're nature based, right? And then Guidance is just it's a good buff.
It is.
You could do a Thorn Whip tree swing.
There we go.
Sick. Not as sick as Will though.
You could
not as sick as I've been.
Yeah, I made Tarzan, the ranger.
Is that why you're making skating jokes? Because I've been quote unquote sick? I'm just getting it now.
Oh my gosh.
Just now got...
This is a joke that spans multiple episodes.
Apparently you don't listen to your own podcast. So.
Well, you just say, he tell us that he didn't yet. He didn't listen to the
no, I haven't listened. I haven't listened to
the news. Your throat's not working. Your ears work fine.
God, listening to your
Actually,
own
my ears don't work fine. I can't hear out of my left ear right now, and that's not a joke.
That's true.
That's right. You said you had an ear infection too.
Yes. Yes.
Now I feel.
It's all good. Let's move on to the next thing.
You get spell casting. I did that one. Furthermore, we have again moved away from spells known to having access to an entire spell list you can prepare from.
Yeah, we talked about it with the Bard. It seems to be the direction they're moving in. And the main thing that, again, I'm concerned about is the Wizard and Sorcerer, which are not in this playtest. So I think there's nothing left to say about that.
Well, they're also doing that thing again here. Like we briefly mentioned for the Bard, where it's Primal, Divine, and Arcane. So this, the Ranger has the Primal spell list. So I do think it's kind of cool that. Well, I have mixed feelings about like arcane casters all just having arcane spells, because there are some spells that were like wizard specific and sorcerers didn't get because sorcerers. Yes. So I'm curious how they're going to handle that.
I'm also like, now that you bring it up, I'm like, yeah, the ranger would have access to the entire primal spell list. And I don't know how I feel about that, because I'm sorry, a ranger shouldn't be doing or like fucking casting tidal wave. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like that's not what rangers do. But again, this is all playtest.
Yeah, I like the pragmatic like implications of magic for the ranger, like making heals out of nature, like Goodberry,
right?
Or like making lots of arrows out of one arrow, like whatever the fuck that spell is called.
I have always been a fan of the idea, and I've never heard it repeated anywhere else. So I guess it's my idea that the ranger should be. That rituals could be a thing that a ranger is tied to.
Yeah, that's
I feel like the type of things that a ranger would do are the type of magic that you're not sure if it actually was magic or not. And I think rituals kind of fit into that category. Not all rituals, but certain rituals. But anyway.
I mean, especially if you look at like the lore of like the books and stuff when it comes to ranger. And by the books, I mean Ari Salvatore, because he wrote best ranger to ever have lived. A lot of it's a combination of like spells and like trap crafting, right? To where like it kind of makes sense to kind of lean into the ritual side of things. I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah,
we should make a subclass.
we should. We will. All right, moving on.
No primeval awareness or land stride features. No mo.
So they got rid of these ones. These were features that came up. Let me see here. Land stride you originally got at level 8, and it says here at moving through a non-magical difficult terrain costs you no extra movement. You can also pass through non-magical plants without being slowed by them and without taking damage from them if they have thorn spines or similar hazard. In addition, you have advantage on saving throws against plants that are magically created or manipulated to impede movement, such as those created by the Entangle spell. And what was the other one? Land stride?
Yeah.
Land stride that was land stride. What was the other one?
Primeval awareness.
Primeval awareness you originally got at level 3. You can use your action to expend one ranger spell slot to focus your awareness on the region around you. For 1 minute per level of the slot that you expend, you can sense whether the following types of creatures are present within 1 mile of you. Aberrations, celestials, dragons, elementals, fae, fiends, or undead. This feature doesn't reveal the creature's locations or number. So I don't mind them getting rid of these two features, because these two features have always been kind of meh to me anyways.
I'm here for it because the ranger, if you had a ranger in your party, any kind of difficulty you tried to put into exploration, any kind of exploration arc was just null and void because they're like, hey, I ignore all of this and we're just gonna fucking walk into Mordor. And so I think that kind of dialing back the exploration side of things and focusing more on the ranger as like just a skillful like nature-based warrior makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I haven't experienced that. I haven't DM'd for a ranger at these levels, so I haven't experienced that, but I could see that being a problem with them.
Yeah, I feel the same. Like, as soon as you get into the fucking mountains, it's like, oh, this was supposed to be hard, and it's just,
it ain't anymore.
It's not even a thing.
Yeah, it's not even a thing, which doesn't make the game more fun exactly. Go ahead, because you're the one reading the bullet points.
You get a roving at level 7.
You can read the next one too.
And you get the tireless feature at level 11.
So these are kind of the replacements, and let's go over them. So level 7, you get roving. So your speed increases by 10 feet while you are not wearing heavy armor, and you also have climb speed and swim speed equal to your speed. This is a beautiful little feature. It's just a little extra something that makes sense for a ranger. Being able to move that extra 10 feet is going to be tactically valuable in most fights. And that climb speed and swim speed is going to be incredibly valuable throughout the rest of your campaign, probably. I like it. I think it's just a good feature.
Yeah, it's like exploratory, you know, like I get bonuses for not carrying my armor around, and like going to explore shit and like climbing stuff and swimming, you know. It's good.
It's exploratory while still being like very useful in combat.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the climb speed, like everybody's dreamed of having the ranger up in the tree, you know, and then you roll a natural 1 to climb the tree and you're like, or I'm just going to lay in the dirt. It's fine. So I think giving them a climb speed, giving them a swim speed, and then also making them just more mobile. It's thematically just chef's kiss. It's perfect. I think it works really well.
Agreed. And then the level 11 feature was tireless.
That means you don't have
never tired.
Tires on your
car. Level 11. Primal forces now help fuel you on your journeys, granting you the following benefits. Temporary hit points. Whenever you finish a short or long rest, you give yourself a number of temporary hit points equal to 1d8 plus your proficiency bonus. Decrease exhaustion. If you are exhausted when you finish a short rest, your level of exhaustion decreases by 1. Again, love it. I think it's perfect. It's both useful in combat, and it feels like a ranger should. They are better at surviving. They're just a little bit more hardy. They're a little bit more sturdy, and when they're out there roughing it, they do a little bit better than your normal adventurer would.
Makes complete sense to me.
Yeah, I like it. I hope they bring a similar. I hope they bring a similar feature to barbarians, because they have that like nature barbarian.
Nature barbarian.
Cool. Yeah. What is it? The totem barbarian. The one animals and shit like that.
Yes.
Like, this would make sense over there as well. I think decreasing exhaustion isn't something we've seen before. That's just a really smart feature.
Yeah.
No more hide in plain sight. Instead, you get Nature's Veil, which is a more magical and likely more useful stealth feature.
I like it when you read my notes back to me.
You wrote them so long ago.
Let me see. So Nature's Veil. Let's start with what you lost here. So what we lost here was hide in plain sight. Starting at 10th level, you can spend 1 minute creating camouflage for yourself. You must have access to fresh mud, dirt, plants, soot, and other natural occurring materials with which to create your camouflage. Once you are camouflaged in this way, you can try to hide by pressing yourself up against a solid surface, such as a tree or a wall that is at least as tall and wide as you are. You gain a plus 10 bonus dexterity stealth check as long as you remain there without moving or taking action. Once you move and take an action or a reaction, you must camouflage yourself again to gain this benefit. Who wants to go over what's wrong with this feature?
Well, it's Arnold from Predator, right?
It is. That idea is, yes, it is. And that idea is cool. But just the amount of caveats and add-ons and situations, like, you'll never use this. Because you have to do all this stuff and you have to meet all these requirements. And then if you fucking sneeze, you got to do it all again.
Can you imagine being out in the wilderness with your party and you're like, hold on, everyone, I just need a bunch of sticks and leaves and about a minute and we'll be good.
Right, exactly.
I like PETA from Hunger Games better.
Yes, that's also a good one.
He's just like, I make cakes and like now I'm a master of fucking nature disguise.
Absolutely. So instead what you get now is Nature's Veil. And I think you get it at an earlier level. No, you get it at a later level, but that's fine because it's so good. You invoke spirits of nature to magically hide yourself from view. As a bonus action, you can expend a spell slot and become invisible until the end of your next turn. So very few requirements. Just a bonus action and a spell slot, and bam, you're invisible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like a tree bends over and like puts its branch in front of you.
Yeah, absolutely.
We got you, fam. You're fine.
Yeah.
I can't believe I'm being this complimentary of wizards on Unearthed Arcana, but I really like this. I like the idea of using the spell slot as a resource for more than just casting spells too. I think that's definitely the right direction.
Agreed.
Can you imagine, like, hey, where'd that guy go? And the bushes are like, I don't know, man. Don't look over here.
That's stupid. That's funny.
A better version of Feral Senses, or at least the language is more succinct.
So, Feral Senses, let's go over the original versus the new. The original is, at level 18, you gain preternatural senses that help you fight creatures that you can't see. When you attack a creature that you can't see, your inability to see it does not impose disadvantage on your attack rolls against it. You are also aware of the location of any invisible creature within 30 feet of you, provided the creature isn't hidden from you, or you aren't blinded or deafened. The new version is like this. Your connection to the force of nature grants you blind sight within a range of 30 feet. That's just so much easier.
It's also 3 levels earlier. Right?
It's also that's part of what makes it better. Yeah. You get it earlier. Go ahead.
And the other one, like, if you're blinded, you can't use that feature.
Which is like, why? It's already invisible.
Yeah.
This is better. You just get blind sight in a range 30 feet, which is fucking cool and succinct. I like it.
Blind sight is a super popular feature too. It's a really good one, I think.
Yeah.
Who doesn't want to be tough? Foe Slayer is now a level 18 feature instead of Capstone.
Yes. So, like I said, at level 20, they're giving all these classes this epic boon Capstone. And in most of the cases, rather than getting rid of whatever the Capstone was, they just move it back a couple levels. So you still get it, and you get it earlier, which is good because most people never even reach these levels anyways.
That's true.
So let's go over the feature. Foe Slayer. Your Hunter's Mark now deals an extra D10 damage to its target rather than an extra D6. Nice.
All right.
Yeah, cool.
More.
It was less cool when you got that at level 20, though, right?
I would say.
Yeah. Okay. All right, now we're moving on to the subclass they presented. Hunter. So go ahead, Brian.
Hunter's Prey just defaults to the Colossus Slayer effect.
Yes. So originally, the Hunter subclass, which you got at level 3, you got this Hunter's Prey feature, and you got a choice between what it did. It was Colossus Slayer, Giant Killer, and I think it was Horde Breaker. And this one, instead of giving you that choice, it just gives you essentially what Colossus Slayer was, which I'll just read it here. Your tenacity can wear down even the most resilient foes. When you hit a creature with a weapon or unarmed strike as part of an attack action on your turn, the weapon or unarmed strike deals an extra 1d8 damage to the target if it's missing any of its hit points. You can deal this extra damage only once per turn. Now, my theory as to why they've done this, besides the fact that they obviously want to take choices away for some reason I don't quite understand, is that this was probably the choice most people were making, because I think it was the choice that gave you the most damage the most consistently compared to the other two, which I don't have it up right here, but I believe Hordebreaker made it so that you can attack a second foe if there's 2 foes within 5 feet of you.
Yeah.
And Giant Killer has something to do with size. Do you remember, Dagger? Do you have it up?
If it's a large creature or larger, so large to colossal, and you miss, let me see. Here, I just pulled it up. When a larger creature within 5 feet of you hits or misses you with an attack, you can use your reaction to attack that creature immediately after its attack. So it's essentially like a counter attack kind of thing. But it has to be a big guy, right? So I think Hordebreaker and Giant Killer just have too many caveats. And
exactly.
Probably ignored them for that reason.
It would be cool, in my opinion. It would be cool if they just gave you all 3, but you only got to use one of the 3 once per turn.
So you had like a single like charge or whatever to use one of the abilities.
Yeah, exactly. Because like those other 2 could come up, and you might rather do them instead of the Colossus Slayer. But like the limit of it just being 1 per turn, like that doesn't really change anything about it. Just, I don't know. I feel like that was probably the better way to go. But instead, they just took the choice away, and we have Colossus Slayer.
I mean, I think the other way they could do it is they could just make Colossal Slayer its own subclass, right? Because Hunter is a very broad subclass.
Yeah.
I think it'd be more interesting to have like specific subclasses.
Yeah, I agree.
Hunter's lore at level 6 is new.
So I don't have, Dad, can you pull up the Hunter from the Player's Handbook? So Hunter's lore is not a feature that the original Hunter got, right?
Correct.
Okay. So you do get it for the new Hunter. And like you said, Brian, you get it at level 6. You can call on the forces of nature to reveal certain strengths and weaknesses of your prey. While a creature is marked by your Hunter's Mark, which it probably is because you have the awesome new favored enemy feature, you know whether the creature has any immunities, resistances, and vulnerabilities, and if the creature has any, you know what they are. I think it's fairly good. I mean, you're going to probably be doing Hunter's Mark a lot anyways, and this just makes it a little bit better.
I mean, you get Hunter's Mark for free, right, with this core class, so there's no reason not to use this feature.
Yeah, absolutely.
Straight up. No defensive tactics.
Yeah, so is it level 7 you got defensive tactics?
Yeah.
This was like an add-on in a way, or like a defensive reflection of the Hunter's Prey feature, where you got 3 choices again. And instead they've just completely, it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, and it's a shame too, because some of those features were really cool, like Escape the Horde. You give everyone disadvantage on opportunity attacks against you, which I think is super useful for somebody who's supposed to be a nimble fighter who doesn't necessarily have the best AC.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was essentially just like an expansion of the 3rd level ability, but defense.
Yeah.
There's also no more multi-attack feature. Now it's constantly prepared Conjure Barrage spell, pretty much.
So the feature is called multi-attack, but it's different from the multi-attack from the Hunter, which again, I think was it 3 choices again, Dag?
2 this time.
2 choices. Can you go over what those choices were, and we'll compare it to this?
Yeah, so at 11th level, you gain one of the following features of your choice. Volley. You can use your action to make a ranged attack against any number of creatures within 10 feet of a point you can see within your weapon's range. You must have ammunition for each target as normal, and you make a separate attack for each target. And then there's Whirlwind Attack. You can use your action to make a melee attack against any number of creatures within 5 feet of you with a separate attack roll for each target. So essentially one is ranged, one is melee.
One is melee, yeah. So the new version they have for this multi-attack is you now always have Conjure Barrage prepared, and it does not count against the number of spells that you can prepare. You can also cast a spell with 1st and 2nd level spell slots, which is new and interesting because it's a 3rd level spell. When you do so, the spell's damage is reduced by 1d8 for each slot level below 3rd. I think I like this less than what was originally presented. I remember reading the Conjure Barrage spell and not being that impressed with it. What are your thoughts, Daniel?
I thought Volley was a really cool ability for Rangers at 11th level. Like just being able to use your action to target like a bunch of creatures within 10 feet of each other, within your, like it made a lot of sense. It essentially was very similar to Conjure Barrage, but it didn't use a spell slot, right? So it was just a thing you could do as long as you had just a shit ton of arrows on you, which I thought made a lot of sense. And then they also had an option for melee fighters, melee rangers, because not everyone wants to play the bow and arrow.
That's me. I'm the 2 longswords guy for sure.
Yeah.
So I kind of think this is lackluster in comparison.
Our final bullet point is Superior Hunter's Defense has been changed to a weird halfway point between the original's Stand Against the Tide and Uncanny Dodge options.
Okay, before we read what this one is, Daniel, can you read us what it was before?
Sure. 15th level, you gain one of the following features, so just like the other ones, you only pick one of them. There's Evasion. You can nimbly dodge out of the way of certain area effects, such as the Dragon's Fiery Breath or a Lightning Bolt spell. When you're subjected to an effect that allows you to make a dex save to take only half damage, you instead take no damage if you succeed on the saving throw, and only half damage if you fail. So similar to Uncanny Dodge, I think. Or is it? No, it's Evasion. It's called Evasion for.
Yeah.
Then there's Stand Against the Tide. When a hostile creature misses you with a melee attack, you can use your reaction to force that creature to repeat the same attack against another creature other than itself of your choice. So if someone misses you, you can make them attack one of their allies, which is pretty cool. And then Uncanny Dodge, when an attacker that you can see hits you with an attack, you can use your action to have the attack's damage against you, which is another rogue feature. Yeah,
so again, they've taken choice away from you, and the choice they've given you is a weird blend of two of those three choices. So this is what it reads. When you are hit by an attack roll, you can use your reaction to have the attack's damage against yourself, and you can redirect the other half of the damage to one creature other than the attacker that you can see within 5 feet of yourself. This is, again, I think I like the original a little better. I'm not sure. I have problems with the original too, and I kind of feel the same way as I did about the whole Colossus Slayer bit, where it's like, why don't you just give me all three, but just make it so I can only use one of them per round? But anyways, I digress. What do you guys think?
I just like having the choice. Right?
I like having the choice.
I think having the ability to kind of shape your build even within a subclass is really cool. So taking that away is just, I don't know, it's disappointing. It feels a little lackluster.
Yeah, I enjoyed the having the options and having the creativity to sort of meld it in my own way.
Yeah, agreed. So that's pretty much it on the Ranger, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, we got it. So let's move on to the Rogue.
Okay.
I'm going to hit a couple bullet points because there's a lot of redundancy here.
Okay.
Expertise is the same. Sneak is the same, but the language is better. What does that mean?
Beginning at first level, you know how to strike subtly and exploit a foe's distraction. Once per turn, you can deal an extra d6 to one creature you hit with an attack if you have advantage on the attack roll. The attack must use a finesse or a ranged weapon. You don't need advantage on the attack roll if another enemy of the target is within 5 feet of it. That enemy is incapacitated, and you don't have disadvantage on the attack roll. New paragraph. The amount of the extra damage increases as you gain levels in this class, as shown on the sneak attack roll.
Okay, so I think what I meant by that is, because I'm going to read this, is I just think this is much more succinct and clearer. So at level 1, you get sneak attack. You know how to turn a subtle attack into a deadly one. Once on each of your turns, when you take an attack action, you can deal an extra damage to one creature you hit with an attack roll if you're attacking with a finesse weapon or ranged weapon, and if at least one of the following requirements is met. 1, advantage. You have advantage on the attack roll. 2, ally adjacent to a target. At least one of your allies is within 5 feet of the target. The ally isn't incapacitated, and you don't have disadvantage on the attack roll. And then finally, to determine the extra damage, roll a number of d6s equal to half your rogue level, round up, and add the dice together. So, and it goes, the extra damage's type is the same as the weapon's damage type. I just think it's the same thing, but it's just written in better language.
Thieves' Cant comes with an extra language proficiency.
Yeah, so originally with Thieves' Cant, you got a proficiency in a language called Thieves' Cant, in which like you used whatever languages you knew, but you spoke in such a way with certain mannerisms and certain euphemisms or metaphors where you were disguising what you were saying. And if someone else knew Thieves' Cant, they could pick out what you were saying. It was kind of like, I think I've made this comparison before. It's kind of like the scene in Austin Powers' Goldmember when
he's talking to his dad.
When he's talking to his dad, and they're using what do they call it?
They're speaking the deep British.
Yeah, the deep British. Basically.
I don't know what I forget what it's called in the movie.
Yeah, where it sounds like they're saying nonsense, but they know what each other are saying.
He shat on a turtle.
Yeah, exactly.
Weren't they just making fun of Cockney accents when they did that?
Yeah, that's exactly what they were doing.
Okay.
Yes.
I haven't seen that movie in a long time.
Me neither.
It's an old one.
Yeah.
Remember that scene with the mole? That guy had a mole.
Oh my god.
Yes, I remember the mole scene.
Remember how much they focused on the mole whenever that guy was in the room?
Yep, I remember.
Remember how he was like a mole?
And he was a mole.
Like the spy kind?
Yep. So the way this reads is you picked up various languages in the communities where you applied your roguish talents. You know Thieves' Cant and one other language of your choice, which you can choose from the standard languages or rare languages table. I guess it's a nice little touch on top of Thieves' Cant. I'm not... whatever.
Did they specify like what kinds of languages? That's something that I've never seen before, where they separated. At least not in 5e. I know they've done it in older editions.
Is there not a separation between standard and exotic languages?
There is, but they never like.
They don't reference it really.
It's not like stated.
Yeah, well, it is like on the tables and stuff. Like if you look in, I think it's in the PHP actually. They list like here are all the standard languages, here are the exotic languages. but they don't ever prescribe which ones you can learn as part of like a racial or class feature. I think it's the first time I've seen that done.
Yeah, I think you might be right.
Let's see here. Cunning action is the same. Uncanny dodge is the same. Evasion is the same.
I think that might have been my point of my notes on this one is they did not change a lot about the rogue.
I think the rogue is golden. Reliable talent is the same. No more blind sense feature. Instead, you get subtle strikes.
All right, let's read Subtle Strikes. So instead of Blind Sense, at 13th level, you get Subtle Strikes. When you attack, you know how to exploit a target's distraction. You have an advantage on any attack roll that targets a creature that is within 5 feet of at least one of your allies who isn't incapacitated. I'm thinking right now in this moment that maybe they got rid of that because they gave the Ranger a Blind Sense feature, and they didn't want both of them to have it.
I like Subtle Strikes. It's like you're at a concert and the DJ's like, everybody put your hands up. And then you stab someone in their pity. Like, quiet.
Yeah, sure. That's exactly that. Yeah. That would be a Subtle Strike. What are your thoughts, Daniel?
Yeah, I mean, it's all right. Like I'm getting a lot of if it ain't broke, don't fix it when it comes to the rogue. Because I think the rogue has always been one of the stronger design classes.
Yeah.
And I think this just kind of leans into that. I think it's interesting. I do think that just having a rogue almost always, it sounds like, have advantage it's going to take away a lot of the just like stupidity around like, okay, well, I'm going to hide behind this box and then jump out so I get advantage, so I get my sneak attack, and then jump back behind the box again. And they clearly know I'm behind this fucking box, but somehow I'm still stealthing. Agreed. So I think they're kind of trying to mitigate some of that.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's fitting. I think it works. Yeah.
Slippery Mind is the same, and the old capstone is Stroke of Luck. That has been pulled down to level 18.
So that's basically it when it comes to the base rogue class. Like you said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and they didn't. Mm-hmm. So let's move on to the one subclass that they presented, which was the Thief.
Thief. A better version of Fast Hands has been implemented.
Yeah, super fast hands. So fast hands, starting at 3rd level, you can use your bonus action granted by your cunning action to make a dexterity sleight of hand check, use your thieves' tools to disarm a trap or open a lock, or take the use an object action.
Cool.
So the way they've changed it is it's mostly the same, including the sleight of hand check to make pick a lock or disarm a trap. But I've also given you the ability to take the search action, which I thought was interesting.
They did get rid of the use an object.
Yeah, they switched it for search action.
A better language on second story work and makes the jump portion of the feature better for rogues who lack strength.
So, do you mind reading the original version, Dag?
Second story work, when you choose this archetype at 3rd level, you gain the ability to climb faster than normal. Climbing no longer costs you extra movement, which is the same thing as just saying you have a climb movement equal to your
speed, which is exactly what the Unearthed Arcana says.
And then in addition, when you make a running jump, the distance you cover increases by a number of feet equal to your dex modifier.
Okay, so the way they've changed that for the new version is when you take the jump action, you can make a dexterity check instead of a strength check. So, yeah.
Which is something everyone's kind of house ruling.
Yeah, exactly. And I think they've realized that, yeah.
They've got a better version of Supreme Sneak.
Want to give me the original?
I got you. Supreme Sneak, starting at 9th level. You have advantage on a dex stealth check if you move no more than half your speed on the same turn.
So now, not only do you get it 3 levels earlier at 6th level, but you have advantage on dexterity checks for stealth you make provided you aren't wearing medium or heavy armor, which you're a rogue. Why would you be?
You also, let's see, a way better use of magic device feature.
All right, mind giving me the OG on that one.
Shorter, yeah. So for PHP, it's 13th level. You've learned enough about the workings of magic that you can improvise the use of items even when they are not intended for you. You ignore all class, race, and level requirements on the use of magic items.
And that's it?
Yeah, that's 13th level.
Okay, I don't think that's a very good feature, but this new one is. So now you get it at level 10. In your treasure hunting, you have learned how to maximize use of magic items, granting you the following benefits. Number 1, attunement. You can attune up to 4 magic items at once, which I think normally you're limited to 3. That's very good. Charges. Whenever you use a magic item property that expends charges, roll a d6. On a roll of 6, you use the property without expending charges. That's handy.
That is handy.
And then finally, scrolls. You can use any spell scroll that bears a cantrip or first level spell. You can also try to use any spell scroll that contains a higher level spell, but you must first succeed on an intelligence arcana check with a DC equal to 10 plus the spell's level. On a successful check, you can cast a spell from the scroll and use the intelligence as your spell casting ability for this casting. On a failed check, the scroll disintegrates. This is pretty good, especially if you're willing to toss a few points into intelligence, because a spell DC of 12, which would be, a second level scroll, isn't too hard to hit. Yeah, it's just a way better version. I think it's the way it always should have been.
I mean, even if you only, like, let's say you get your into like 15, right? At 20th level, you could use 9th level spell scrolls pretty easily because you get a +6 from your proficiency mod, right? So you got a 50-50 chance to cast Wish from a scroll.
And I love the archetype of like a treasure hunter who's just been doing it so long and is so like has through osmosis learned enough about this type of shit to kind of like work their way through it and kind of make it work right, I think that's cool.
Yeah, like, I've seen something like this before. Tinker.
Yeah.
They've just been pickpocketing wizards and, sneaking looks at their spell books all day. So.
Yeah.
There has been a big change to the thief's reflexes.
Daniel, would you do me the honor of reading the original?
When you reach the 17th level, you become adept at laying ambushes and quickly escaping danger. You can take 2 turns during the first round of any combat. You take your first turn at your normal initiative and your second turn at initiative -10. You can't use this feature when you are surprised.
Okay, so basically it gave you an extra it gives you an extra turn in the first round. The new way is like this. You can now take a second bonus action on your turn, provided it is a bonus action from Cunning Action. You can use this feature on a number of turns equal to your proficiency bonus, and you regain all expended uses when, you finish a long rest. It's just very different, isn't it? It's just very different. It's hard to compare them.
I mean, it's a whole different like power level from 14 to 17, right?
Yeah.
And it's just an entirely different ability.
Yeah, it's just a totally different ability. I do like it, though. I think it's very fitting that the Thief Rogue gets 2 bonus actions. Granted, they're tied to the Cunning Action. But Cunning Action, what you can do, what is it, evade or dodge, disengage, hide.
Can't disengage.
You can't disengage, my bad.
That's swashbuckler, yeah.
That's swashbuckler, my bad.
Yeah, dodge, hide.
Can you dash?
I think you can dash, too, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like 2 bonus actions. You can disengage and dash.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Or you could dash 3 times.
Yeah, or that.
And just
book it.
You're just sprinting throughout
Become
the
a
field.
fucking blur.
I like it. I think there's a lot of creative stuff that could be done with it. It sounds cool. I'm into it.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else?
Epic boon feats.
Okay, epic boon feats. So this 1D&D thus far has put a lot of emphasis on feats in a way that feats were emphasized pre-5e, but still very much in the vein of 5e. So the thing about 5e was that like feats there was fewer of them and they mattered a little bit less. But if you did take them, they were very robust compared to old feats. Old feats used to be like, you take this feat and now you have a +1 damage to all fire damage. They were like very like small little things like that. Now they've been made even more robust, but they've also put a lot of importance on them. And one of the major things is they've introduced these things called epic boon feats.
Epic boon.
Yes. So look, I'm going to count how many they've introduced. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 epic boon feats. And the thing about epic boon feats is that you can only take them at level 20. and they are mostly pretty dang powerful. I don't know if we want to go over all 13. Are there any particular ones that stand out to you, Daniel?
So the one that I don't like is Epic Boon of the Night Spirit. For level 20, it feels really damn weak. While within dim light or darkness, you can become invisible as an action. You remain invisible until immediately after you take an action or a reaction.
Yeah, that's...
Invisibility is a 3rd level spell, y'all. Like,
true. Also, doesn't the assassin or the Way of the Shadow Monk get this like way earlier? Or something like this?
Does too. Yeah. They both get features like this. And it just seems kind of like a lot of these are really, really cool. Dimensional travel looks like a lot of fun. There's a few others in here that I think we could probably talk about in depth. But that one, I was just like, I mean, be better. I don't know.
Yeah. Especially they're your capstone. Like, these are your capstones now, theoretically. Until the next Unearthed Arcana comes out and does something completely different. I like the idea of epic boons, and I think most of these fall slightly short of what I would expect out of a level 20 final feature. But it's an interesting step. I'm interested in see where they go with it. I like feats in general, and I like tinkering with my character and like tinkering with its build. And there's almost nothing besides multi-classing that is easier to do that with than feats. And so the fact that like feats are being souped up and highlighted, I'm excited about. I don't know if it's going to be good or bad in the long run, but I'm excited to see where it goes.
I think it's a really smart business decision by Wizards of the Coast, because I know people pay a lot of money for feats.
Yeah, they will. Like for you want to make whole books of feats, like people will buy them.
Yep, that's what I meant.
What did you say?
Mm-hmm. No, yeah. Well, that's the end of the notes.
Okay.
Indeed.
God damn
it. I will say, when I first saw them mention or announce that they were doing expert classes as the next UA, I'm kind of disappointed that this is what it was, because I thought we were finally getting
prestige classes.
Paragons.
Or paragons.
Yes, we
the same, yeah.
Prestige class, paragons. Like, depending on what edition you started with, you'll call them by any other name, unless it's 5th edition, in which case you have no idea what we're talking about.
Yeah.
It was essentially a specialization you could take at later levels that would grant you, like, it would narrow your focus even more in terms of whatever, like, your niche was.
Yeah.
They were just really cool. It was a lot of fun.
They were super cool. They were incredibly popular. So if you were from 3rd edition or Pathfinder, they were prestige classes in which they were classes that went from levels 1 to 10, and they were generally like you said, they were hyper focused, but they were more potent and more thematic than whatever class you came from, and you usually had to meet prerequisites to get to it. Paragon paths were a little different. Everyone got a Paragon path in 4th edition at level 11, and it was like a higher specialization, and you had a whole bunch of ones to choose from.
Which I thought was an improvement over 3rd, personally. I know a lot of people had issues with it, but
I love Paragon paths.
Yeah.
And I like prestige classes too. And I would have thought that that's what they were doing if I didn't know Wizards enough to know that they do not like the idea of more choices and more nuance and more tinkering. They don't want to deal with that. So
they're anti-complexity.
They are anti-complexity is kind of what they've become.
Like is kind of starting to bite them in the ass a little bit. I think we've gotten to the point where people have been playing 5e for 8 years now.
Yeah.
And they're starting to beg for more, which is
they've reached the point that a lot of us older gamers have been at for a long time, and that's good. They've played the game long enough, and they want a little bit more to chew on. But Wizards is reticent to give them that because 5e's simplicity was so successful that they want to keep mining that nugget. But we'll see what happens. Well, with that, I guess we could get ready for a long rest.
Yeah, I think we should. Once again, thanks Daniel, for coming on the show. We really appreciate you having me here.
Yeah, welcome anytime, man.
You tell us about Tell us about your stuff one more time.
One more time. Diversity Saves is the name of the organization. We are a nonprofit. We have filed for 501c3 status. If you know anything about the IRS, is that they take forever. However, any donations that come in will be tax exempt once we do get that status, dating back to the date we filed, which was back in May. So all donations are going to be tax exempt as part of a 501c3. We're a collection of BIPOC, LGBTQIA members of the ttrpg community. We are players, we are creators, we are passionate about the community and want to help uplift marginalized communities within the ttrpg space through grants and fundraising. We have a big event coming up the first week of December 1st through 10th. It's going to be called the 12 Games of Critmas. You can find out more details at www.diversitysaves.org or on Twitter and Instagram at diversitysaves. Thank you again, guys, for having me on here. It's been such a blast. It's
been a good time.
The Dungeoncast.